Naturalistic observation is meant to capture behavior in the natural environment, which means the researcher measures but does not interfere with the subject. This approach is a major part of field research, especially in ethology, the study of animal behavior. In this study, researchers made detailed observations of gestures and behavioral consequences in a group of chimpanzees in Uganda to determine whether they're used as a system of language. After making over 4,000 observations of distinct gestures and recording what happened, they found consistent gesture-consequence pairings. After making over 4,000 observations of distinct gestures and recording what happened, they found consistent gesture-consequence pairings. For instance, the image on the top left, offering a particular body part to another, was most often followed by another monkey grooming them, so they inferred that it must have meant something along the lines of, "Groom me here, please." This was one of the first attempts to study language use by apes in the wild and involved a lot of video recording and analysis, so this work is time-consuming. Also, this group of chimps were not living in captivity, but they've been studied extensively since 1990 and are very habituated to humans. It's possible that the very act of being watched for so long by humans changed their behavior. One major challenge for researchers using naturalistic observation is finding a way to convert the varied behaviors in the messy real world into numbers that can be analyzed. This can be more difficult than lab-based research, where variables can be well defined. In this study, researchers used 3 different measures to assess pace of life in 31 different cities across the world. One measure was taken through naturalistic observation by timing how long it took for pedestrians to walk 60 feet in downtown areas. They used clear sampling criteria to choose subjects and locations. The fastest walkers were in Switzerland and the slowest in Mexico. They also took other measures, including the speed of postal workers to complete a request for a stamp purchase and the accuracy of town clocks compared to the official time of the local phone company. Although these measures do not totally capture something as abstract as pace of life, they are well defined and easily measurable and tell us something about daily life in these cities. Naturalistic observation carried out in public places like this does not require participant consent, since there's no expectation of privacy in these situations. Sometimes researchers want to describe behaviors that are carried out in settings where participants typically do expect privacy, which can be challenging. Let's consider a creative example of naturalistic observation in an unusual place, an operating room. But first, a bit of background about the lead researcher on this study, primatologist Frans de Waal. De Waal's research out of Emory University focuses on moral behavior in non-human primates. His work on conflict, cooperation, and empathy revealed sophisticated moral codes in monkeys and apes, suggesting they might hold similar rules of conduct and maybe even values as us humans. In one recent study, he and his research group applied their expertise in characterizing primate behavior to an ethogram of social behavior of medical staff in an operating room. An ethogram is a technique used to systematically record behavior in the wild, but can be used effectively in other settings. Interpersonal conflict is common in most workplaces, but in an operating room the stakes are high, not just for the patients, but for those working in this environment. Traditional methods of evaluating conflict and cooperation in medical settings are based on self-report surveys, which are sensitive to social desirability bias as well as memory errors. Therefore, de Waal and his group altered an ethogram method used in bonobos and chimps to capture behavior in real time from live surgeries. They first developed several categories of behavior relevant to conduct in an operating room. These categories were further subdivided into specific operational definitions of behavior, with a coding system to indicate the type and intensity of behavior. This is only a partial list, so it's clear doing this kind of detailed observation requires time, effort, and training. Furthermore, the researchers had 2 observers complete the ethograms simultaneously from different areas of the room in order to assess inter-rater reliability. The intent of this study was to provide proof in principle that this research approach is feasible as a novel way to collect this information. This method isn't perfect. Keep in mind that these medical staff knew they were being watched, and that might have altered their behavior. But an ethogram is still a better way to capture natural behavior in the operating room compared to the traditional methods involving retrospective self-report questionnaires and interviews. Test yourself. List advantages and disadvantages of naturalistic observation. This research approach is powerful because of the ability to capture natural behavior. However, it requires a lot of work to create operational definitions that fit the many different expressions of behavior in the real world. Also, when individuals know they're being watched, both humans and non-humans sometimes alter their actions. Despite these limitations, naturalistic observation is the first step in studying a novel behavior.